morning, everyone. Good morning. This is Bill Miles with the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce, and we're delighted to have you back with us again this morning. You know, today marks our 35th Tele-Town Hall, and we're pleased that so many of you continue to be engaged each Wednesday morning at 9:15. And it's through that and on Zoom, along with our partnership with the Beaufort County channel, and then also on social media that so many people get the ability to listen to what these thought leaders have to say each and every week. We also appreciate the positive feedback that we continue to receive from so many of you who listen in each week, as well as new listeners that we're picking up along the way. One thing I do want to mention, we won't be hosting our Tele-Town Hall next week due to the Thanksgiving holiday, but then we'll be back on December the 2nd. You know, this morning, I can't let the moment pass without recognizing our chamber leadership, our chamber volunteers, and our chamber staff, along with the residents and business community. I'm proud to tell you that the chamber has once again received 5-star accreditation from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And we're honored to be accredited at the highest level, and I think that speaks volumes for our community and for the leadership in the community and all of our members who participate. Just to give you one stat along the way, there are over 7,000 chambers of commerce, and only 132 of those, 132, have received the coveted accolade, which puts us, your Chamber of Commerce, in the top 1.9% of chambers in the nation. So I think those stats are pretty good. Very proud of them, and hope you are as well. You know, just like any accreditation process, it's in-depth, thorough, and certainly not easy to achieve. And the U.S. Chamber leaves no stone unturned, just like other accrediting bodies throughout the country. And they're looking at everything from chamber financial accountability, programming, to the involvement of our membership, our reputation and effectiveness in the community, and much, much, much more. So anyway, I just really want to say thank you to all of you who participate, and thank you for making that happen. And then, you know, this morning, before we hear from our first speaker, I'd like to give a shout out to a guy that's going to be ending a 40-year banking career, and that's our good friend Tom Hens. And Tom's going to be retiring at the end of this month. Tom has spent the last, I believe, 30 or 31 years on Hilton Head Island in banking, and has been the president of Synovus Bank, the Hilton Head market, for the last 25 years. And, you know, when you think of a pillar in the community, to me, Tom Hens certainly defines that. He's a past chamber board member and a leadership graduate, and has been involved in so many great organizations, such as the Gullah Museum and Rotary, to name a few. Also, Tom served on many school improvement councils, building programs for the school district, and just a top-notch guy. And so, Tom, we wish you all the best in your next chapter. We know that you're retiring from banking, but still have lots of things that you want to achieve. And Tom's currently teaching a few classes at USCB and enjoying that. He's also an avid runner, and there may be a marathon or two ahead for him as well. So we'll see where that goes. But, you know, I was thinking, when you look in the dictionary under gentleman banker, the picture you would see is of Tom Hens. And that's exactly who Tom is, an Ohio State guy, and his son Jackson and wife Susan, just a great, great family. And Tom, we salute you and say thank you to you for all the lives that you've touched through banking, as well as your personal volunteerism throughout the 31 years here on Hilton Head Island. And we look forward to your continued involvement in many, many things. So with that, we're going to move on to our first speaker. And we're delighted to have back with us today Dr. Rodriguez. And Dr. Rodriguez, it hasn't slowed down a bit since last time we talked to you. And I know there are things continuing to evolve, and we look forward for an update today. And thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And it's great speaking with all of you again today. And as you probably may have already heard, our district announced, we announced last Friday that we will be resuming face-to-face instruction 5 days a week on January 4th. We are very excited to get our kids and our students back in our buildings full time, as this has always been our goal to get to that point. And it's important to note that we as a district did not take this decision to return to face-to-face instruction lightly. Not only have we been monitoring our own district metrics, but we've also been studying other school districts' metrics across the state that have been providing 5 days a week of face-to-face instruction. And essentially, we're finding that these school districts have a relatively low percentage of staff and students that are testing positive for the virus, even if they are in a county with high spread. In fact, the majority are under 1%. We're seeing numbers like 0.42%, 0.28%, 0.16, 0.05% that they would have on a weekly basis as they monitor. Our own district metrics for the past 5 weeks of hybrid instruction have ranged from 0.05% to 0.07% within our buildings. And so essentially we're finding that this includes not just students and staff that are within the building, but it also includes students that are virtual as well. And I think that that's an important note because for a majority of this semester, it's been about the same. The number of students that were and staff that were positive, that were face-to-face or in our buildings, as well as those that were virtual. So interestingly, what we and other school districts are finding from our contact tracing is that most of the COVID-19 cases among students and staff have not resulted from being in school buildings, but rather from engaging in outside events and activities. So it's just a great opportunity to, urge our citizens and community to continue to take necessary precautions against COVID-19 virus. It not only helps them, but it helps our community, but it helps us be able to maintain schools, and keep schools open, and all of those great things that we want to be able to do. Throughout the entire COVID-19 pandemic, we have operated cautiously to protect employees and students within our buildings. As we move forward, we'll continue to engage our teachers and administration to support the educational environment for the students. And right now, it's important to note that approximately 62% of our students district-wide are in face-to-face instruction, and the remaining 38% have opted for virtual instruction. Even though we will be returning to 5 days a week of face-to-face instruction in January, those who wish to remain virtual will be able to do so because we will continue our all virtual instruction for those families that are not ready to make that transition and choose to stay in the all virtual format. We felt it important to give our families that choice, as we want everyone to feel as comfortable as possible, given the unprecedented circumstances and challenges that we all face associated with the pandemic. So I would also like to remind our families and anyone who may be listening that as a general rule, we will not be making any instructional mode changes from virtual to face-to-face for the remainder of the first semester. But if parents would like to change their students' instructional mode preference for the second semester, that semester starts February 2nd, they can make that request through their child's school during a registration window that we opened on November 16th, and we're going to close on November 24th. That window will allow them to change their mode for second semester that begins February 2nd. This affords a consistent learning environment for students, ample time for school administrators and educators to plan accordingly and make the changes to schedules and master boards for second semester. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with everyone today. I continue to be grateful to be a part of this great community and to be able to serve alongside so many talented educators, support staff, administrators, as well as our school nurses who are working tirelessly to keep our schools safe. And I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, and I would encourage our listeners to continue sending in questions. We have the first one from Annie, and Dr. Rodriguez. Annie is asking, are schools still doing standardized testing? And if so, how have test scores been impacted?
Yeah, so essentially, last year, the state waived the end of year exams for all students. And so the typical assessments that they give were not offered to anybody across the state last year at the end of the year. As we move into this year, they will have those same assessments at the end of the year. Again, they'll have them, but the state, I believe, has been sent a waiver to the federal government to waive them again this current year. So I currently don't have any metrics around that with respect to the state assessments. We have done what we call map testing, which is a bit of a diagnostic assessment, which we did in the early semester around August. And the purpose of that was to try to get a grip on any potential learning loss from March through August. There's usually a summer slide that happens anyway, but we were trying to get a handle on what that looks like. Those assessments are, not every school district gives those assessments. They have different ones that school districts give. So it's hard to take a picture of it and extrapolate that comparatively to how other districts might have done. However, in terms of our own district, what we saw in August, we actually saw that there was some growth that existed actually for some of our students. We had some programming over the summer that we did and continued virtually. But in general, this assessment was a different type of administration than you would normally do, because normally those are done completely in school. And in August, those were done. We brought students into the building that wanted to take it on a face-to-face, but in terms of the requirement, not everybody took it that way. Many students took it virtually. So we have seen some growth that came out of it, particularly looking closely at our schools that were our what the state calls priority schools, or would list as maybe struggling schools. They call them priority. So
thank you for that. Next question is coming from Carolyn, and Carolyn is asking if the district is planning any summer remedial programming to help with the instruction disruptions.
The answer to that is yes. We've already begun planning. One of the things that we have to do is we also have the referendum project work that's going on at the same time. So certain schools will be closed in order to accomplish some of that referendum work, and we'll have to shift students to other schools to get their summer work in. But we will plan on having the high school level an algebra boot camp, and that's one piece. We'll plan on having some credit recovery opportunities for high school students. When we get into elementary, middle school, we have what we call a summer reading academy. And last year, the Summer Reading Academy was a virtual format. We are hoping that things are progressively better, and we'll be able to deliver a face-to-face certain instruction in the summer. So we are planning on that, and we're headed down that road. So the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. The next question is coming from Kim. And Kim's asking if that means if my student is virtual and wants to go back to school full time, do they have to wait until January to go back full time and provide my intentions by 11/24?
No, so what it means is that provide your intention by 11/24, and that would be for face-to-face for second semester, and that second semester begins on February 2nd.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the next question is coming to us from Ray, and Ray's asking, we hear a lot about the psychological impacts of the pandemic on our youth. Are there resources available and being provided by the school district to help students cope with the mental health aspects?
Yes, so the answer is yes, and we are expanding those as well. As a matter of fact, this week, either today or tomorrow, we have a session with a program called Panorama, which is around social emotional well-being of students. So we are already engaged in that work. This is an additional piece that we're bringing on to provide additional support around social emotional. So yes.
Dr. Rodriguez, Rick is asking, what do you anticipate the challenges will be in January with face-to-face resuming?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest challenges, obviously, is you're putting more people in the building. We have some pretty good protocols that are in place already. I think the biggest challenge for everyone, it's not just the school system challenge, but it's a community challenge, is that we have in every one of our classrooms this school year, we have assigned seating, right? And that is a really important piece because it helps us minimize quarantines, right? Because when you start contact tracing and the specific place where everybody is seated in classrooms, that helps you limit the amount. Otherwise, DHEC and our nurses would cast a wider net, right? And so the idea is to be as specific as possible so that we can do that. The biggest challenge, I think, for everybody is going to be around quarantines. While quarantines do not mean positive cases, right? It's simply a tool to help prevent spread of it. That we may see, quarantine cases. Right now, you've probably heard about like the football teams and things like that, and that have happened, and we've ended up quarantining teams. Well, that's because out on the football field, you don't have assigned seating, right? You don't have assigned seating in practices, and those are the precautions that end up being taken. But when it comes to within classes, you can zero in with assigned seating and identify anybody who may have been within a 6-foot barrier for longer than 15 minutes. That would constitute a close contact and then constitute a quarantine. So those are I think those are the challenges that we're going to face. And our goal is obviously to, as we move forward and step through it, to keep as much of cases down and to limit the quarantines, right, to those that absolutely must be quarantined, and go from there.
All right, thank you. The next question is coming from Rick, and Rick is asking, how is the progress on the referendum work coming along? And is there a part of that work you're most looking forward to for students and teachers?
So thank you for that question. And one of the reasons I thank you for that question is because it gives me a chance to think about and talk about other things other than the COVID piece. But we're really proud of the work on the referendum. We actually we had 2 major projects that launched initially, and one of those, the River Ridge expansion, was completed on time and under budget. The second one is May River project, which will be completed, I believe, in February, and that also will be is tracking on time and under budget as well. So we're really proud of the work and the way it's being managed and held. We have 2 large projects coming forth next, which are Battery Creek High School, and then, of course, the largest one on the referendum is the Robert Smalls International Academy for next summer. The other work that takes place, throughout is the technology infrastructure work and some of the athletic field work that's being done. I'm proud of what's being done and the way that it is taking place. I think our community should be proud of it. That it is really should see. We have the clock committee. That clock committee reviews all the work that we're doing, how we're spending the dollars, and there's a tremendous amount of expertise on that committee. And so far, they report out quarterly, and they continue to report that progress. They ask some very difficult and challenging questions of our team. They have very efficient and effective meetings monthly to review it. And I think it's exciting news. I think it will continue to instill public trust and confidence in the system. So.
All right. Another question comes from Jason, and Jason is asking about assigned seating and what is the plan when class enrollment is greater than the space allows for distancing?
Well, what DHEC and the CDC are saying is that it's to the 6 feet to the extent possible, right? And so when we bring students back, it will not be 6 feet, but we will be adhering to the other components that they add when you go within that 6 foot barrier. And so what we do then is we have desk shields at every desk, and mask as it is right now will continue to be a requirement in our buildings. And so essentially we're adding the component of desk shields. We also have these fogger machines that I'm not sure the technical term, but I'm calling it a fogger machine, which essentially cleans and disinfects the area that we are utilizing and will continue to utilize at that juncture as well.
All right, Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much. That's all the questions we have today, and just on behalf of our listeners and community, certainly want to say thank you for your leadership and the extremely low COVID rates and your dedication and the district's dedication to keeping the students and teachers and all staff safe is remarkable. And we just thank you for being with us again today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate being here with you, and look forward to joining you again.
Dr. Rodriguez, will you do me one favor?
Yes, sir.
Take a couple days off during Thanksgiving. You deserve it.
Thank you. We'll do that.
All right. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Take care.
All right. That was Dr. Rodriguez, and certainly timely and important information that he always shares with us when he's with us. And so another shout out and thank you to Dr. Rodriguez and his staff. Next, another exciting speaker, and with this week's making the announcement of a second vaccine for COVID-19, we're glad to have back with us Dr. Jane Kelly with DHEC, and she is very, very good at helping us make sense of all of it and what these new vaccines might mean for a better 2021 and the latest updates. Dr. Kelly, thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks for having me. And I hope you can, I think I have fixed the glitch I had with my computer. Can you see my screen?
We sure do.
Thank goodness. And I want to start with just applauding the evidence-based approach to the return to school that Dr. Rodriguez just discussed. I mean, they have not only put in the extra effort to make sure the school situation is safe, but also by looking at the comparison of infections among school children and teens who are whether it's community-based transmission or school-based transmission, the assigned seating limitations so that they can limit quarantine. I mean, all of that is excellent work and so important for maintaining the gains. I apologize for the wrong date on that first slide, but the rest of these slides are updated. As I'm sure you're all aware, the country's cases and deaths are unfortunately really ticking up with more than 11 million cases. We've had more than 1 million new cases in the past week, and an increase in the number of deaths and hospitalizations. A lot of that is in the center of the country, in the Midwest and the Northwest. But unfortunately, South Carolina also is having a trend upward in the COVID-19 cases. The green line is that 7-day moving average. I would ask you to focus on that. It is starting to uptick, and I do have serious concerns, as I've voiced before, about Thanksgiving. I do want to show what South Carolina looks like from the 4 different regions. And if you focus on the low country, that is the lighter blue bar, the low country has done a good job in keeping numbers down. There's an increase everywhere, but right now South Carolina's cases are seriously increasing in the Midlands and the upstate. So far, the low country has done a pretty good job in keeping numbers down, but I still caution that we have an upwards trend. And if we want to look at the specific numbers, USA, more than 1.2 million new cases in the past week, almost 10,000 new deaths for almost 250,000 deaths countrywide. South Carolina, all of these numbers are increasing as well. We've had over 9,000 new cases in the past week. That's more than 1,000 cases a day, and 171 new deaths. As we learn more about how to treat COVID-19, both with medications and with intubation and respirator use, ventilator use, the number of deaths is mitigated, but it's still on the increase, and people need to take that to heart. In Beaufort, total number of cases, more than 6,000, and that's of those who are diagnosed. We still don't know, of course, about people who don't get tested, who may be asymptomatic or have only mildly symptomatic disease, yet transmit it to others who do get seriously ill. That's 232 new cases for Beaufort County. Thankfully, no new deaths. And for Bluffton and Hilton Head, those zip codes at the bottom of the slide, Bluffton has 112 new cases in the past week. Hilton Head, 63 new cases. Those are seemingly small numbers, but they're double what they were a week ago. Let me tell you again another story about why I'm concerned about Thanksgiving. Here is a recent event, 55 people in rural Maine, where there traditionally have been low numbers of COVID-19 cases, so they thought they were safe. 55 people attended an indoor wedding reception. And what's remarkable here is that the wedding reception led to transmission of 30 cases among the people who attended the reception, but then they went home. And there was secondary spread, meaning from one person who's infected, they take it home and spread it to another, and tertiary spread, that it spread to yet a third person beyond that. So some of this was spread in local community. Someone visited a person who was a healthcare worker in a long-term care facility, a nursing home. And so that led to further spread within that nursing home, 38 cases, 6 deaths. And another person worked in a correctional facility and brought the COVID-19 back with her into that correctional facility, leading to 82 additional cases. So I know I'm a broken record, but the concern about Thanksgiving is exactly this. Travel itself is not unsafe, and getting together with people doesn't have to be unsafe, but you have to be careful. It's avoiding large gatherings, staying home when you're sick, even if you think, oh, this is just a cold, this is just allergies, play it safe, because we don't want to see this happen in the Low Country as well. As you know, there are shutdowns going on in the Midwest and other states. We're not doing that in South Carolina because we've not reached that degree of serious transmission, but it is starting to tick up. Let's talk about something positive. Vaccine update. You had heard, I think we talked about this last week, that the Pfizer mRNA vaccine, the preliminary assessment, 90% efficacy after 2 doses. There were no serious safety concerns. And then this week we had the Moderna announcement. This is another mRNA vaccine, so it's a similar mechanism. Their preliminary assessment was 95% efficacy after 2 doses and no serious safety concerns. Of course, this is preliminary. We don't have the final final efficacy and safety information, but there are other vaccines that have 90 to 97% efficacy. Polio vaccine, the Shingrix, the new shingles vaccine. So it's conceivable that they are this efficacious. I will say this for both of these vaccines, people did have mild to moderate symptoms after the second dose. And by that, I mean, sore arm, feeling, achy all over, feverish for a day or two. And, I think that for some people that they're going to reject this vaccine as, oh, it's going to make me sick. To me, I think that's well worth the trade-off to have mild to moderate symptoms for a couple of days if I can avoid having COVID-19. But more information will emerge once these vaccine producers submit their emergency use authorization paperwork. Then we'll have access to the data so we can understand something more about it. The Pfizer vaccine is likely to submit their EUA this week. It'll be at least 2 weeks before all the reviews can be conducted. So at the earliest, this might be available in mid-December. And even then, it would be very limited availability. And probably the earliest vaccine will go to workers in high-risk healthcare settings, critical to keeping people alive. The Moderna vaccine, a lot of similarities, to Pfizer, but fortunately, it doesn't have such extreme storage requirements. You can store it at minus 20 degrees C, which is like the standard freezer temperature. And you can store it for up to 6 months, or at a normal refrigerator for up to 30 days. That's going to have limited availability, possibly as early as January. We're cautiously optimistic that we'll have more widespread vaccine in the spring. And these are, of course, not the only vaccines in the works, but these are the ones that we think are most likely to come out first. All right, my recurrent theme about do masks really work? I'm going to give you another piece of data. I know the print on this is small, but you just pay attention to the figures, the line drawings, and that'll tell the story. The graph on the left has to do with hospitalizations. So these are hospitals in counties, hospitals which admit patients from counties that had a mask requirement in Tennessee. And you see that there was a peak in late July, an increase in the number of people who were being hospitalized. But of course, that was happening all throughout the country in July. We had a massive peak in July. And then they came down, and then they returned to sort of baseline for hospitals where more than half or more than 75% of patients came from counties with a mask requirement. If you look to the graph on the right, however, these are hospitals where less than 25% of patients came from counties with a mask requirement. So this is not asking people whether they wore masks per se. It's just looking at the population-wide. Do masks make a difference population-wide? They had a big surge in October. Ditto for hospitals where fewer than half of patients came from a county with a mask requirement. They had an increase. This is evidence on a population level that, wearing masks makes a difference. So I'm just reiterating the same thing. Thanksgiving is coming up. I know the weather has turned colder. To what extent that you can avoid large gathering. And when you get together for Thanksgiving, hopefully with a smaller group than usual, but practice social distancing, wear masks when you're not eating, and stay safe. It's the same message over and over again, but it is critically important. All you have to do is pick up the newspaper and read about what's going on in North Dakota to strike fear in your heart. We don't want this to happen here. Stay safe. Vaccines are coming. They'll make a big difference. And once again, there is my email. I'm happy to take any questions now or by email if you think of them later. Thanks.
All right, Dr. Kelly, thank you once again. And first question this morning for you is from Sherry. And Sherry is saying there's a lot of confusion about when a person is contagious and how long symptoms show up. Can you clarify that, please?
Sure. So there are a couple of things here. There is the latency period, the period of time between when you are exposed and then you develop symptoms, and that really varies. So let's say a person is exposed and they're exposed to a high enough virus count that they're going to get infected. It can take anywhere from 2 to 14 days before they start showing symptoms. It can be a long incubation period. That's why our recommendation is if you were in close contact with somebody with a known infection, we recommend quarantine for 14 days because it might take that long before you express symptoms. Now, honestly, most people, if they're going to get infected, will show symptoms within 8 to 10 days of infection. But to play it safe, we have been recommending people quarantine for 14 days. And by quarantine, I mean staying home, not going to the grocery store, not going to work, staying home, and keeping a distance from your family members, but not necessarily, locking yourself in your room and avoiding all contact. So just to reiterate, if you've been exposed, It might take as little as 2 days before you got symptoms or as long as 14 days. That's why we recommend the quarantine for 14 days. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Thank you. Next question is coming from Ken. And Ken is asking, one of my relatives is a CNA on a COVID ward and wants to travel home for Thanksgiving. What would your advice be on that?
I would want to know if this person is being, how careful are they being with the personal protective equipment? Presumably they're being very careful. And if they are that careful, then they hopefully they are at risk because of the work that they do. However, my recommendation for this person would be to get tested before they travel and to get tested with the gold standard test, with the PCR test. That's the nasal or oral swab test, not the rapid test. The rapid test is not as sensitive. And then when they travel, it is the same recommendation of really being strict about wearing a mask and keeping your distance. No hugs. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you for that. Next question is coming from Brianna, and Brianna is asking, do you still consider outside dining relatively safe?
Yes, I do. And now when we talk about outside dining, you still need distance. You don't want to be seated at a table right next to somebody else. It's less than 3 feet away, for example. And I know some restaurants are using these plastic bubbles, trying to put people sort of under this umbrella contraption. And I don't know that that's been tested. I don't know that that really offers any advantage. It is the air circulation that's most important. So outside dining is much, much safer than indoors.
Okay, thank you for that answer. Next question is from Carolyn. And Carolyn's asking, do you have to get the vaccine annually once it becomes available?
No one knows yet. That information will evolve over the next year. No one knows for sure how long the duration of immunity will be with this vaccine. However, experience with other coronaviruses, because there are 4 coronaviruses that are somewhat related that cause the common cold. Experience with those has shown that immunity usually lasts only about a year. So it may be that this turns into an annual revaccination or a booster dose, but we don't really know that yet.
Okay, Dr. Kelly, that's all the questions that we have this morning. We appreciate your being with us again. Again, to the listeners, we'll make Dr. Kelly's slides available to you. And I know you agree with me that each week she's providing valuable and very helpful information. So Dr. Kelly, thank you. And we're wishing you a happy Thanksgiving as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. Our next speaker, you can't talk about Thanksgiving without talking about food. And we're serious about food in the South. And our next guest this morning is going to give us an update on the new Culinary Institute of the South, set to open in the fall of 2021 at the Technical College of the Low Country. Mary Lee Carnes, many of us know, is TCL's Vice President for Institutional Advancement, and is called the Culinary Institute of the South, a recipe for workforce development and economic growth. We all know what a museum is, but the new campus will be home to a foodseum, and we're eager to hear more about it this morning. And Mary Lee, thank you for joining us, and we're all excited to hear the update on the Culinary Institute.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I'm always eager and look for every opportunity to talk about the Culinary Institute of the South at the Technical College of the Low Country. And it is under construction. I visit it at least once a week and stand peering at the fence as it's going up in the Buckwalter Place Commerce Park in Bluffton. And as Bill said, it will open September 2021. It's 29,000 square feet and some change, and it has the capacity for 300 students. And it will be important to the resort tourism industry here. It will be an excellent pipeline for trained professional culinary workers, and also with our relationship, particularly with Beaufort School District, with the very robust career technical education programs they have. including culinary, this is an opportunity to keep those students here. I know some of those students have wanted to continue their culinary education onto college and have left the area in order to do so. And we know a national statistic is once a student leaves and goes to another area to school, 72 to 73% of those students will not come back. They will stay there. If they go on to the Culinary Institute of Charleston, they have a 73% chance they're going to stay in Charleston. The same with Charlotte. Now we can keep our students here who are interested in this career, but we can also recruit other students to come into our area, and then we too will have a 72% chance of keeping them here and helping to continue to build the wonderful industry that we have here. I want to share with you, there's a couple key features that the Culinary Institute of the South has. It has 5 training kitchens, and they were just very cool to look at. It's going to have 8 academic classrooms. It has a kitchen training auditorium. It's very sophisticated. It's where, with the kitchen in it, it will be for the training of the students, but we'll also be able to broadcast. And so we're looking forward to being able to highlight all the wonderful culinary talent, the professional chefs that we have in our area, to bring them in and share them with even larger audiences. It will have a teaching restaurant. Culinary is back of house and front of house. Just to tell you how the teaching restaurant fits into the culinary curriculum. This is a culinary associate's degree. So in the second year, probably the last semester of a student's academic career, there'll be a cohort of students who will be charged with designing business plan, to theme, to menu, a full restaurant. And then they will be conducting that, implementing their business plan and conducting that restaurant during their last semester. And that's what the teaching restaurant will do. What makes it great for us is that we can eat there. So of course, business relies on customers. And so that's also part of their education. And so we will all have the opportunity to have lunch there when it presents. As Bill said, the Foodseum. You may have historically heard us refer to the Culinary Institute of the South would have an interpretive center in it. That is an unimaginative title. We had to do better. And a very creative individual here at the Tech College of Lowcountry, Lee Copeland, our Director of Marketing and Public Relations, came up with the Foodseum, because that's exactly what it's going to be. But it's not going to be static. This is going to be a Foodseum where you can eat some of the exhibits. It's going to capture not only the history of culinary here in the Lowcountry, but how do we sustain that? We're talking about seed and farm. We hope to highlight some first-generation farmers, actually, in the Lowcountry. So the Foodseum is going to be, I think, an important component. I think it's going to be attractive to visitors, and it's going to be an important component to the education of the students in the Culinary Institute of the South, but also the community at large. I want to mention why we named it the Culinary Institute of the South. We had thrown around, a number of names, but for our industry here, for our region, we named it the Culinary Institute of the South because we aim to position this school nationally. And it's already getting some of that attention. We've had calls, and then we have a student coming in from Texas. And this goes back to my comment that if we could bring students into this area, either from Texas or North Carolina, then we can keep them here. And that builds our workforce. And that is why we named it the Culinary Institute of the South, because we want to establish this as with a national recognition. Towards that end, we have since trademarked the name, or that's in trademark application, the Culinary Institute of the South, but also the Foodseum. So we're eager. Along with that is we're about ready to we're in negotiation with our next key hire. And I wish I could say we have that person bound up tight, but not quite yet. This role will be as important to the Culinary Institute of the South as the dean, Chef Miles Huff, is to the Culinary Institute of the South. This individual will be taking on the curation of the Foodseum. This individual will also oversee continuing education. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the continuing education side. That is outreach to the community at large. That is where we're going to bring the tremendous talent in locally into the school for the students, but also for the community. That is where we'll reach out to culinary talent across the country to come in and maybe be a resident for a semester. So this is an important hire, and we're hoping by the first of the year we can have that wrapped up and announced. One of the most special things about the Culinary Institute of the South is that it belongs to the community, because this community has built it. There's no state funding in this. Beaufort County and the residents of Beaufort County, all of you, are the ones building the Culinary Institute of the South. We continue to fundraise, and towards that end, I want to thank particularly Bill, who is part of the Chef's Table. So this evening is the second annual Chef's Table, a little bit different than the inaugural Chef's Table in 2019. So literally a year ago today, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, was the inaugural Chef's Table at Harbortown, at the Harbortown Clubhouse. 250 people attended, and there was a waiting list. It was wonderful. 15 of our professional chefs in the Low Country were there. They contributed their talent. Our students joined them, and we had a wonderful evening of it. So it was fabulous. This year, it's fabulously different. It's all virtual. But part of tonight of the Chef's Table is the Chef's Round Table. And Bill, thank you for being a part of that. What this is going to be a live discussion of industry leaders, of the advocates of our economic health, of educators, to talk about the importance of the local industry and to talk about the importance of the Culinary Institute of the South to that industry. Along with Bill, joining us from Columbia, traveling as I speak, is Gil Smith. And Gil is a South Carolina president of U.S. Foods. U.S. Foods has been an extremely generous contributor. They have given us $100,000 towards the Culinary Institute of the South, and by way of their gift, have named the first kitchen. Also joining us and traveling as I speak is Chef Kevin Mitchell. Chef Mitchell is the South Carolina 2020 Chef Ambassador. He's also writing a book with Dr. David Shields from University of South Carolina. Our president will certainly be at that table, as well as Chef Miles Huff. So I encourage you actually to join. You do not have to give in order to join. And if you'd like to register and watch what goes on this evening, just go to tcl.edu/table. And you can watch all this going on. Jesse Blanco is the master of ceremonies tonight. And of course, as always, our students will be the feature. And they will be cooking. And we're going to watch them cook for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Speaking of students, I want to take this opportunity to tell you all something that The college did a soft rollout of this past spring. Actually, it was more summer. It was in July. COVID has impacted every aspect of our lives, and as a college, we went all online. So all our instruction went online. We wanted to do whatever we could to encourage students to continue on with their education and to graduate out of high school, go on to college. So we rolled out a year early, Build a Better Lowcountry Scholarship Program, and that is where, for all the areas that the Technical College of the Lowcountry serves. So it's Beaufort County, Jasper County, Hampton County, and Colleton County. For every student graduating from a public high school, they can attend the Technical College of the Lowcountry for 2 years free. And that is the Build a Better Lowcountry Scholarship Program. And I hope you're going to be hearing more about that. This is something that we have very generous donors to the college. It is those donors' dollars that are creating Build a Better Lowcountry. But it is a way to elevate our students and elevate all the communities that we serve by really encouraging education locally. So that was a mouthful from me, and I would happily take on any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. That was an exciting update. We just posted in the chat piece there about the registration for the event tonight, which will be a super event. You won't want to miss that. The first question, Mary Lee, is asking for it's coming actually from Mark, and Mark is asking what you see as a first year projection of enrollment.
We had originally planned for 150 students. The big picture is, this is like any startup business. Our business plan sees us going 3 years until we have enrollment, also known as revenue, meeting expenses, and we start operating in the black. So the original plan was for 150. The culinary program was one of the programs that were hit hardest when COVID-19 hit, and that is because, as we all know, there's a lot of academic gen eds in the program because it's an associate's degree. But what drives these students is to be in a kitchen, to be hands-on. And for the spring semester, we had to basically shut down the kitchen. We do have a kitchen right now at the New River campus. And when we did that, we had about 80 students enrolled in the program, which was over capacity at that point. We lost more than half of them. Going into this fall, we're back up over 50. Chef tells me that there's going to be another 20 to 30, coming on in the spring. Enrollment's revenue for any institution of higher education. So we're really leaning into that. We're working with the school district with the dual enrollment and to keep those, bring those students in upon graduation. So I appreciate the question, but it's tough. Just so much uncertainty. We're excited about the vaccines. We just don't. But uncertainty often prevents, and we have seen it prevents many students from making a decision as we wait to see what forms that decision.
Mary Lee, thank you. There's been several other questions that we've had for you. Unfortunately, you've answered those in your presentation. And I just want to mention to the listeners about the our chamber gala last year and how at that event that some of your students were able to work side by side with certainly Chef Miles Huff and then other chefs like Mark Murphy and our own Philippe Ferre, the Hilton Head Social Bakery. And just what a great experience it was from a chamber standpoint, getting to see your students in action and doing what they love to do and creating the passion that you can tell that is instilled upon them. And so that was a wonderful evening. And I say that because I know tonight's going to be a wonderful evening, and I would encourage people to, again, look at the chat box there and register for the event. It'll be a great night. Mary Lee, thanks for all you're doing, and look forward to being together later on this evening.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks, everyone.
You're welcome. Okay. Well, everyone, that's going to conclude today's Tele-Town Hall. We appreciate you for being with us, and I want to again wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving and a very safe travels if you're traveling. And please don't forget to be kind to one another, wear your mask, and stay safe. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Bye-bye.